Let's go on. So thanks to everybody for being here today for the web seminar, the Idea Factory, our second webinar. Thanks to our guest. I will start from the more proximate one, which is Massimo. Thanks for coming and joining us. Thanks, Ricardo, for being here with us. And thanks as well, Alessandro, for joining us today. Today, we will be discussing about blockchain. Blockchain, a word that we've been listening so far in the last couple of years. It seems that it would have been the base for any further disruptive evolution. But so far, it seems today a little bit quieter, but still people are talking about. So we will be discussing about how we should think about blockchain in the fashion industry. We will discuss this with Alessandro Michetti from Skianet, Riccardo Mocellin, PhD student in management engineer at Padua University, and Massimo Brandellero, which is, I don't know why he's here and why I'm here as well, but let's say from the ID Factory. So a few words about our guest. Let's start with Riccardo. Talk who you are and just a brief presentation about yourself.
Yes, thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for inviting me at this interesting webinar about blockchain technology. I'm Riccardo Mocellin, management engineer, and with a bachelor degree in information engineer. And now I'm finishing my second year as PhD student in management engineering at the University of Padua. And with two professors, so my research team, we are studying blockchain technology according to a supply chain management perspective. So we are not interested in technical aspects, even if we have to know about them. But we are really interested in assessing the potential of the technology as regards problems such as traceability and counterfeiting. So we have already studied several cases of Italian winemakers in order to understand how blockchain solution can help in addressing the counterfeiting problem. And now we are we are working on another study on more complex supply chains, always in the agricultural sector, but as we will say, some consideration, some aspects can be also applied to the fashion industry. And we are working to assess how can blockchain be applied in complex supply chain to control how the different actors operate, if they follow procedures, standards, if they operate in a good way as desired by the major actor of the supply chain. In my studies, I had the possibility to attend an MIT course on blockchain technology about implication for business. With the professor, we held a lesson on the QA business school regarding blockchain technology, and this year we will I will hold another lesson within a master in operation and supply chain management, because there is a great interest in the blockchain in this sector. And so this is all for me, and I'm very happy to be here with you to discuss about this topic.
Thanks, Riccardo. So let's say that we pass the floor to Alessandro.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
Skianet.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for calling me for this webinar. I'm Alessandro Michetti, working for Skianet. I'm a web developer and mobile app developer, working in this sector from 15 years. Actively working on backend websites as a DB architect, as an API designer, and as already said, as a mobile app developer. I'm working for Skianet, and I'm the person in charge for my company for the innovation for the innovation process. So blockchain is one of one of the main target for our innovation process for the near future. So we're more interested in the tech part of the blockchain. So it is.
Thanks, Alessandro. Now let's see whether this time it will be easier for us to discuss about who we are. Massimo, what do you do and what's the company you work for, or let's say your company you founded does?
Hi everybody. Actually, I am Massimo, founder, as Luca said, of the Edifactory. Edifactory is a supply chain management platform. We are working on the fashion industry in order to support the brands in the area of management, the complexity of the supply chain, in a direction on manage the data for a sustainable approach. And our main goal is always to try to, to let the brand understand that they need to measure what really matter. This is the area where we are working, and for this purpose, we are looking at all the new technologies that can support the supply chains. Of course, blockchain, it's since a few years one of the areas of high interest that we are looking quite often actually. And we say, we are very happy to be here today with several area of interest that where we can discuss about blockchain from this different perspective actually. So thanks everybody to be here, and I hope that we can have a kind of brainstorming that can offer a different point of view about this technology and application that it can be if we think about fashion industry.
Thanks, Massimo. This time a little bit better. So I haven't really understood as well where the Edifactory is really focused. So
okay, I should be shorter. I should be shorter.
I think
shorter
so.
Than
I
this.
think so.
All
I think so. We have to work a little bit more on that. Besides, it's only 5 years. We are trying to define ourselves, but sooner or later we are going to find out the right solution. So let's start our brainstorming. I would like to point out one thing. Blockchain is a huge opportunity thing for the fashion industry, but so far, besides several kind of projects that has been arising in the past years, I may remember a project sponsored by the Italian government 1 year ago about implementing a blockchain web portal in order to track and trace materials and enforce the Made in Italy concept that so far I think has not been working yet. I don't know whether they're still working on. There's some major luxury brands that are focusing and investing in blockchain mainly to work on anti-counterfeiting. There's several kind of approach, but none so far seems to be focused on what I think supply chain can rule better. So on the supply chain, on the traceability, on verifying any single step that is following a product within the supply chain and make it transparent, certified by the blockchain. So far, there's a lot of discussion about. I'm a big fan of blockchain, but not that much informed. So I would like to start our brainstorming on this, and who knows where you're going to finish. We need to find out ideas. We cannot really provide any solution today. I think the best things we should give to our crowd is just new ideas. Let's go, guys.
Okay, if it's okay, I can start with some consideration related.
Let's go, Riccardo.
Point. Thank you. So, from my point of view, academic literature suggests so many benefits related to blockchain when applied to supply chain, such as greater efficiency, improved information sharing, a better transparency, better security. But when we look at the industrial point side, we see that despite these great potential benefits, there is the great difficulty in scaling up a project. So there are a lot of pilot projects, a lot of proof of concept that suggest great benefits, but there are difficulties in implementing the technology from the raw material to the final customer. And but this is an important point that is required if we want to, for example, fight counterfeiting or provide the complete history of the product flow, the material flow along the whole supply chain. So I would provide you with two considerations, in my opinion. We have seen that there are two major type of solution. One that is focused on B2C. So we want to improve final customer experience to provide final customers with proof of authenticity of or the history of the product. Or on the other side, we want to improve visibility on the supply chain from a B2B perspective to be sure that, for example, our supplier operate in a certain way, following some procedures, some regulation, and but this is really difficult to apply because some actors will not be interested in taking part in this project. And so there are a lot of difficulties in scaling up, even if the characteristics, the technical aspects of the solution that provide immutability, that provide non-reputability of transaction, of declaration, are really interesting regarding this point. So it's interesting.
Just a question for all of you. So far, brands are focused on anti-counterfeiting, mainly on the luxury group. Letting all the things behind the counterfeiting things, so the whole supply chain, mainly unruled. I perfectly agree that probably there are some players that are not really interested in, but I would say that all major brands are structuring their supply chain in order to work according to their specs. So if they're going to specs blockchain as a major impact in order to provide traceability, in order to that gives transparency and provide to communicate in a better way the way that they are doing products in a more sustainable way, it should be a real good approach. So what do you think is missing within the brands in order to push this through the whole supply chain, even because some of these major brands have been investing really $1 million on these projects?
Okay, so I think that the ideal situation is to have a complete visibility on all the actors and to be sure that each actor operates in a certain way. However, has all the information systems, when you work with blockchain, you have a secure way to store data to be sure that they will not change, that you can know who wrote a certain information, when this information was written, but you are not sure about the quality of the data uploaded on the blockchain. And for this reason, you have to think about how to be sure that each actor, your suppliers, your downstream actors in the supply chain, upload information that actually reflect reality. So this is an important point. In the literature, so many actors say that the final solution is eliminating the human factors, so relying only on IoT sensor. However, this is not so simple. Let's imagine, for example, in the wine sector, there are the processors are so labor intensive, so variable, And with IoT, you cannot describe each aspect of the production, for example, or the...
In the fashion industry also, I mean, I think is even more. I mean, the human part is even more actually. That wine probably. So yeah, I think that this is a potential problem also in the fashion industry. Okay. Anyway.
Yes, yes. And there are so many other aspects that are not related only to technical aspects, such as, process-related aspects, how frequently information are uploaded on the blockchain, are information managed before being uploaded on the blockchain after data collection. So there are a lot of points where there are criticalities and data can be manipulated in opportunistic way. And I think that this is the most critical point in this type of application.
So I would say that besides start working with the ID factory that collects data, manage data, and upload data into the platform, which basically provide a secure information about data quality. So Massimo, remember this, that quality data quality. So this is something that we have to write on our presentation. I would ask to Alessandro, what can be done in order to grant the quality of the data uploaded, besides working with the ID factory?
Well, all the supply chain have to should use a standard way to upload data, and I don't know if the
probably the process. I mean, probably the technology should be. I mean, very useful based on the current process. Probably because I mean, until now I think we just touched one part that is the anti-counterfeiting part, but I think that we have area like more interesting, like probably transparency. Okay, transparency. Blockchain is a way to support the transparency, but transparency is a mission. So first, the transparency should be on the DNA of the supply chain, and then through the blockchain, I mean, we can have this type of quality already into the systems. Probably. I mean, okay, I don't want to touch the finance part because actually the finance is the easy win part if we talk about blockchain, but. I use a word that, Luca, that you like that much. That is, I think that something that can put together the quality of the data and all the player, because actually, as Riccardo said, the problem is to have the engagement of the all parties there. And I assume that this is a process that should be top down from the brands, as you say, Luca, but also bottom up for the quality. So it should be something that is, I mean, working on both directions in a process of co-evolution of the supply chain sectors of the stakeholders.
Oh, we go back. We go back to the old school, actually, of supply chain management. So I think that once you start managing your supply chain in a focused way, so keeping relationship with your player, with all the supply chain players, besides works on KPI and metrics. So that's for the engagement. You can obtain for sure an higher engagement because the relationship is not only based on what is considered, no, don't let me say win-win, I hate that terms, on a commercial based only. So that should be an option. Setting up process. So far, I have a discrete background on working for brands, both on the mass market, and on the luxury one. And so far, that considering the way they're managing their supply chain with the lack of information, the lack of processes, standardized processes, it's quite it's quite tough. So basically, I think that if we go back to what Ricardo was saying, I will not point out on the engagement of the supply chain, but on the willingness of the brands on working on these. Because before talking about blockchain at this point, I think it should be easier and better discussing about supply chain management and processes. And then basically you can build something on the processes you set up, because normally when you set up a software or a platform or whatever ruling your supply chain, or without having a clear in mind what the processes and how the processes are running, it's a complete disaster, because then everything is going to be slowed down, and you need to waste a huge and insane amount of time on creating shortcuts in order to avoid the use of the platform. So I think that we have to go back let's say for a massive implementation on supply chain management for the fashion industry, because that's basically what I know better. Is working on their supply chain. I saw that probably there are some shipping companies that are basically tracking all the containers worldwide with let's say under a blockchain platform, and this makes sense because probably they have clear in mind all the processes and whatever happens during the whole process. So arriving in the port, loading, downloading, and all these things. But probably the fashion industry, there's a lack of rules on managing the supply chain. Massimo, what do you think about?
I totally agree. I totally agree. Actually, I think we are talking about talking about blockchain in fashion industry is like the Tesla to Mars. We probably in the fashion industry need to start from let's say the Tesla. I mean, in the world first of all. I mean, and let talk about first of all digitalization of the supply chains, which is already something. I mean, where I mean, you know, because we are working on this area. I mean, especially so and. Blockchain is probably, yeah, hyper interesting. It's a cool word today, let's say. It's a cool word to say. It's a cool, it's something that looks cool, but probably in fashion it need to have a real application on this technology, which is a totally new area that need to be totally explored. And what is the real benefit at the end of the day? Probably we still didn't understood in reality, you know. Because I mean, I think that I mean, Alessandro. I mean, just a question to you. I mean, as a developer and company that works for on software solutions. I mean, I think you have often requirement or no. I mean, just a question. Yeah, often you have a lot of requirement or not about blockchain.
Well, it's a difficult word because. There are costs that are not that are quite high, so you have to require a level of requirements for the software high, because you have to describe every type of smart contracts that you create. So it's difficult to issue this smart contract with data that is shared between all the supply chain and to.
But the companies, I mean, customer of Skianet, I mean, there is several in these years which is asking from different sectors, of course.
Not so much, because yeah. Everybody loves the idea, but in the practical work, it's difficult to implement and to combine every subject of the supply chain to apply to this new method. So it's difficult to let people know how to be structured So this is the one of the problems of this technology, of this concept.
Yeah, so basically what we all are saying, I mean, our feeling from different area and perspective is that there is different problems, which is nothing to do with the technological aspects actually,
Yep.
but it's more on, so that, I mean, the technology is there, the technology is ready, but in reality, we are not ready. I mean,
even because the subject of the supply chain are, you have to combine them to be transparent with all of their work. So it's not so easy to let them share all these informations and to give all the information to the outside world.
So let me be a little bit provocative. In the fashion industry, which is one of the most consuming industry and in the world, if you think that basically starting from the basic one, the mass market, up to the luxury one, in different ways, but basically they're really consuming and emitting. So there is we can talk about emission and consumption of the decremental of the environment. Let's say a huge push, okay, to be really sustainable should be not really asking them to declare something, but let's say to run into blockchain in order to be sure that what they declare is what it really is. So we start really measuring what matters and what they're really doing. So that, let's translate in another sentence. Besides protesting and asking for emission reduction, should we ask why don't you rule your supply chain and whatever you do until retails under a blockchain platform? So whatever goes on is basically ruled and registered and is immutable. So you cannot really change it. So at that time, we will exactly know where we are and what we have to do in order to be neutral by 2030, besides planting trees. So being sustainability an engine to push blockchain within the fashion industry.
Yes, in my opinion, an important point is the goal congruence. Each actor has to be interested in this regard, this point. Another situation that we've seen is when there is a major actor of the supply chain that use a coercive approach. So told each actor, each supplier, you have to use a blockchain solution in this way to be my supplier. And so this is maybe a futuristic view, but not so far in my opinion. And I think that it's really important, and I'm curious to know your opinion about this, to consider blockchain not as a solution for the problems, but that has an essential component, a new component to that inside a good system with, for example, an appropriate smart label, with an appropriate way to get their data from real world, an appropriate way to associate the physical product to the digital information. This essential element can provide very strong benefits in this sector. But another point is that there is, in my opinion, big need to have governmental support. So legal concerns have become a major challenge right now, because as you're surely aware, there is a lot of confusion also within companies about the legal value of declaration of smart contracts. And I think that the government should state some rules to how to use this solution, blockchain, because we have seen a lot of projects that say we certify product with blockchain, but there is nothing on the blockchain. There are maybe some information along the supply chain, but not the general flow of material or the history of the product that maybe could be represented only on the website.
But I would say that besides what you are saying, that yes, I think it's a tool. It's an essential tool to improve sustainability within the fashion industry, for the single reason that the lack of real transparency in the fashion industry is a need. That is not is a need, is what it is actually. Everybody are declaring that they are doing something. Everybody are talking about sustainability, but no one is really proving what they're doing. There is a, yes, they are committing to, I wouldn't say everybody, but the majority are committing to.
Sorry,
yes.
Luca, but from another perspective, there is also a lot of companies that is doing a lot of things and is not anyway, I mean, talking about at the end of the day. We have both.
I was yes, exactly. I was going on that direction. Okay, there's a part of the fashion industry that they are just committing to something. There are someone that basically they are committing and doing something, but the market cannot make us, so the consumer cannot make a real evaluation. So another tool to, let's say, to spin to speed the introduction of blockchain should be this one. Actually, I would say the need to let the consumer knows that they're really going in to take this thing seriously. And let's say it's already better than nothing, because if they have a clear information about what their supply chain are doing, so where they're buying raw materials, where they're producing shoes, bags, or clothes, how they transport them. So there's different players, but I would rule them within three major figures: vendors, material vendors, material transformation factories, so manufacturers, and then transportation companies. So within these three, at the end, there's the brand, which brings and collect all together, and then distributing to the retails. So three main figures plus the brand. So there's not that many figures, because manufacturers are all doing the same things, transforming raw materials into products. Material vendors are transforming raw materials into materials, and then the brands is distributing. So it should be something that could be used in order to be to let the consumer know better what they're doing. What do you think?
I would like to add something. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying, refer to what Riccardo said before. One of the key problem of this, not technology, because blockchain is not technology, but an idea that's behind all this. One of the key problem is the legacy platforms we are still using. We are still using data and rules that come from market from a century ago. So we are using a different methodology, different ways to measure, different ways to get data from this transformation, these raw materials. So I think one of the innovation in this world should be that to uniform and to get real data for the needs. This is one of the problems, and to optimize data to save in the contracts. So all these actors from the raw material suppliers to the factories they should communicate with simple data and not a lot of different data. So simplification of this process should be a key in the to improve the use of the blockchain.
So from my understanding, the ID Factory should be the solution of implementing the blockchain technology
Here
in
we
the
are.
fashion industry.
Here we are.
But because that's what we do.
Here we are.
No, but seriously, actually, if really the problem is the way the data is collected, get it in a uniform way, and providing a consistency on data collection and transmission, and processes that basically, if everything has to pass through a platform, a simple process is already set it up. This really could help. But so far, do you really think that rather than on finance and Bitcoin, there will be in a short period, short midterm, a massive implementation of the blockchain, not only in the fashion industry, but even in related industry? Let's say that wine is related not to fashion, but to the consumer, which is more or less the same. How long will it take? Besides, let's consider that we have the solution on getting reliability of the data and consistency of the data. So how long will it take to get blockchain massively used within the supply chains?
It's not a simple question, in my opinion. As we've seen, also the Italian government is working on setting up a strategy for defining some guidelines in the way how to use blockchain technologies. There are a lot of criticalities. I think that some interesting projects are today overcoming some challenges, such as, for example, before we've talked about data privacy. That is a big problem that usually, and this problem is related to the fact that actors doesn't want to take part in this project. But we have seen also hybrid, for example, solutions that combine the privacy, but also the data immutability. So there are a lot of, how to say, a lot of experiments to understand how to overcome some challenges. But in this world, when you overcome a challenge, you face other barriers. So I think some years are needed to see a solution that combines some aspects and overcome all the issues that we are seeing today.
It's true that we are probably still in the beginning of this curve. You know, I mean, we cannot yet talk about adoption. At the end of the day, we are in the area of the experiment still. Yeah, a lot of case use, a lot of proof of concept. That's true, but probably is still missing several why. At the end of the day, you know. What you say before, Riccardo, is, I mean, if big players, I mean, they want to implement in their supply chain, it can be like a minimum requirement to their supply chain to adopt the solution as instead of, I mean, to use one material, this is a solution, okay, it should be implemented in the supply chain, okay, I mean, probably this is, from my opinion, this is very, it's very near. I don't know if it's near with blockchain. In our experience, we had a lot of customers asking about it. But when we go through the why they wanted, there is not yet a clear why. Because, I mean, because at the end of the day, yeah, as I say, we are in the beginning, it's an experiment area. So the real why is clear when we talk about money. So we talk about finance part, it's extremely clear. I mean, to be sure about the transaction, to be sure, this is clear. But the real why about anti-counterfeiting or about transparency, I mean, today we don't have clear rule about transparency. We have clear rule about money transaction. We don't have clear rule about what really means transparency, you know? So I think that the main, I mean, the real question is why. I mean, why blockchain should be adopted. Then when we have probably when we have a clear why in mind, then the adoption curve will change totally, you know. I mean, this is my opinion, but at the end of the day, the consumer or the B2B area, they need a why to make the actions. So I think that what is really needed is to better understand what is the opportunity of this technology and why we should really, we should adopt instead of what we are doing today. I mean, as Alessandro say, we are starting from a 1 century processes and systems to a blockchain. I mean, it's not, I mean, it's a very long journey. I mean, it's a very long journey, you know.
Well, I think that the process right now is working. No, there's a flux of from the raw materials, the fabric to the brand of this. What we are looking for the blockchain is just for one reason: trust. Because you have to trust all the supply chain. You have to trust what kind of chemical is used in the process. You have to trust the transportation of the materials. You have to trust all these actors in the supply chain. So I think that this is the main goal for the blockchain.
So providing trust, that's an interesting landing point because when we talk about trust, we talk about several things, which goes from transparency, we goes to sustainability, we goes to best practice, we go to something that at the moment.
Luca, I am now more provocative to you, back to you. You know, I mean, you talk about transparency in the fashion industry. There is a big association pushing on this direction. You know, we have big players. I mean, a big association like Fashion Revolution, that it's focus on transparency of the supply chains. You know? I mean, they extremely focus on this transparency and pushing the brands on these directions. I mean, probably also this type of a part of government, a part of single companies, but probably we need also support of this type of association to push some technology like blockchain to prove the transparency. You know, I mean, this also can be another player that can make the difference.
Yeah, you know, at this point, it's talking about stakeholders. Out of the fashion industry, there are several stakeholders, and all of them should be interested in make this industry performing better. So definitely. We cannot. That the good things is just that we should hope that everybody are doing everything for the best. So producing for the good. To be more regenerative and non-degenerative, but basically this is not that common. So even the help of NGOs performing seriously on the matter, because there are some other that are not performing seriously, but these ones are performing seriously, are for sure a good point in order to push the industry, in order to implement the trust. And for sure that from the other hand, no changes are performed if there's not a request for the change. So the biggest stakeholder, in order to have more transparency, I would say, so trust on the data, and so be sure that the data that comes out from a fashion industry are real and are not fake, are the consumers. If consumers are not pushing, they are the strongest stakeholders because they are paying and they are supporting the industry.
Definitely.
I would add a point regarding trust, because we are really working on this point, how blockchain affects trust in supply chain. And we've seen that the ideal is to shift the trust from the supply chain actors to the technology. But the level of trust of the technology depends mainly on the way how data are uploaded. And so we have seen a lot of different solutions to this problem. For example, the use of AI, artificial intelligence, simple algorithms to, for example, to check the congruence, to verify if there are some incongruencies between data. For example, in the wine sector, if you collect a certain amount of grapes, you cannot obtain a certain amount, a measured amount of wine. So there are some way also to cross-check the data by using algorithm, or for example, there are some companies that involve third-party certification bodies, but here we lose the principle of decentralization. However, for example, if you upload on the blockchain data that are verified by them and that can lead to legal consequences, you can understand that these data are visible to everyone, cannot be modified, and the companies who declare something that can lead to legal consequence has to take this seriously. So we can think about digital trust, in my opinion, at different level. And if we define the best solution, and it will take years, in my opinion, that guarantee the possibility to shift trust from the supply chain to the technology, it is the ideal situation, but we have to work a lot to reach this point.
Yeah, this concept this concept, I think, is super interesting, you know.
Absolutely. So we know exactly how to perform our commercial strategy in the next future with the ID Factory. There's two major players on the blockchain.
This is the purpose of these webinars, right?
And we don't really have to talk to our customer. We have to talk to them and give these ideas, actually, and talk about trust, data collection, consistency. You don't really need IoT or in AI, but you need us. That should be a good push, but I don't think it works. It's an insane idea, as 90% of the one that we have. So guys, I would like to let the floor and the crowd to see whether there's some question about, I think that we've been covering many areas.
Yeah, but we cover probably only the 5% of each area.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, this is, as I was saying, actually, we are not, okay, I'm not an expert. Ricardo is an expert and Alessandro are experts, but I don't think 1 hour is enough to cover several aspects. So we've been, let's say, brainstorming, as we've been saying in the beginning, and that's what the Idea Factory is doing, actually, not the ID Factory. The Idea Factory, which is the brands under we cover these seminars, these webinars, as just a brainstorming section in order to see whether there are some good ideas coming up. Maybe yes, maybe no. I have no idea, but I would say that let's see whether if there are someone has some questions.
Yeah, in the meantime, I would like to make a short recap, if just to understand if I do something. Actually, we are talking about different application that is possible today, so we are talking about transparency. So transparency is one of the why. We are talking about anti-counterfeiting. That is similar, but it's not the same. Actually, it is another why, which looks like quite often. We say quite often. Finance, okay, obvious. And probably one area, two area, which is actually that I feel more interesting, is this area of co-evolution. So in order to cooperate and have an evolution of the supply chain together, with one unique mission, and the area of trust. So we have already, you know, five why actually, where we have to work, and where maybe there is brands which is focus on one or the other, you know. It's already 5 areas, I mean, for one solution, you know, for one technical solution, which is extremely interesting already. But I think, again, I think that this is just an area, a new area, totally to be explored. Actually, probably the real potential we will see. Yeah, the real why probably we will see in the next years. Probably.
I think so. There's a question. 1 second. Angelique say, and also how to communicate with indicators. Actually, she was asking, probably I don't really understood, Angelique. Okay, that's for sure. I understand. Which are the KPI to communicate? Probably Angelique was asking this. Which are the data that has to be communicated, and which are the indicators that has to be uploaded? This is a question.
I think that once again, I mean, I will be very short. First of all, we need the why. Based on the why, we know what is needed. Yeah, probably Riccardo, I mean, if you can see the question, yeah, you speak of 5, 6 topics and how you will communicate to B2B and B2C. Yeah, true. Yeah, 6. Yeah, this is the 6th point. I think you had already experience on that because you're talking about wine, and that probably was, I assume that was on the B2C direction also, right? So how to communicate with using blockchain and how to communicate with this data between B2B and B2C.
Yes, I think that the B2B is more near that B2C because it's really difficult to make final customer aware about good blockchain solution implementation. For example, let me provide you this example. When you assess the data related to a wine using the QR code, data that you can view are not directly stored on the blockchain. You see the data on the website. That is between you and the blockchain. If you want to assess blockchain and verify that data are really stored in the blockchain, it's not a simple process. So right now, it's not. There is also a problem of user friendliness, if we can say in this way. And instead, if you use a solution for B2B, maybe there is a different target, and it's more simple to use the blockchain to and to right now today to use the benefits that blockchain can provide. There is a lack of final customer awareness, in my opinion, right now.
Yeah, and probably this works also for B2B at the end of the day, you know, because also in B2B, probably the access to this information is not that easy anyway. I mean, to be stored, yeah, to work, to interface with that, yeah, but how to, I mean, have the real access and how to verify, probably, I mean, probably the same, probably. Am I right?
Probably, you know, communication on blockchain has been mainly focused on fintech and on Bitcoins and any kind of electronic money transaction. And as nobody has been really pointing out on the meaning of trust, which is the easiest things to communicate to a consumer. If you're going to scan the QR and all the data you get on your mobile phone about the origin of the materials, so let's talk about wine, where the grapes came from, how many tons of grapes has been processed, how many bottles, where it has been bottled, how it had been transported, and all these things. And you know that those data are not just marketing, but you can trust and rely on the data because they are verified on a blockchain system. Communicating this sense of trust, probably the consumer will be more aware about this technology. So sometimes it's easier not to explain technology, but just give an idea of what are they for. So in this case are to provide you trusted information, reliable, and basically just not marketing.
Yes, I agree.
That's great. So guys, I would say that 1 hour has been flying. I would like to thank Alessandro and Riccardo for their experience, and basically what we've been learning a lot of things, at least by my sides, which I'm totally unaware about blockchain. And let's work on the next webinar, which won't be in August. It will be
anyway. I
assume
that we will have probably a requirement about this. I mean, to have some more insight about. I mean, this is the.
So I'm kindly ask our guests, our friends actually, whether they will be available for a further, more focused brainstorming session on blockchains and maybe sustainability, or maybe wine or shoes or whatever we are covering in the next one.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks to all the guests. Thank you, guys. And thanks to the crowd for being here. See you next time. Ciao.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you.